Evening, y'all. Man, it's been quite a day. I have been, since Monday, I think I've told you, traveling from Jefferson County, Hardin County, all the way over here to Lexington with a family member that is in UK Chandler Center. Amazing medical care. Quite taxing, though, to do that and go to work at leaving the house at 5:30 in the morning each day. And then driving all the way over here when work is over. But that's what you do for those you love, right? Now, speaking of what you do for those that you care for, have you ever gone out with a really good buddy, y'all, and you think it's a really good buddy, you know, but they invite you out for the night, go do some, you know, partying, having a good time, and they just abandon you in a place that you don't know. You have no transportation because you went with them, and now you're stuck hours from home and no way to get back. Didn't even know when they left you. Yeah. Well, apparently that's what our president did to his whole crew recently. Now it's even worse than that. Of course, in my case, when this happened, it happened with my brother come to visit me and my sister for the holidays one time. I had another friend I was in the military, had another friend visiting from the East Coast. I was over stationed in San Diego with the Marines of Camp Pendleton. And we decided to go all the way from Camp Pendleton down to Tijuana, Mexico, and, you know, party for like the New Year's. And my roommate was our driver. We got a ride with him all the way down there. We're supposed to get a ride all the way back. Imagine our surprise when the night was just about over and we had agreed we'd meet up at a, you know, certain place when the night was over, and we had been abandoned. We weren't told that we were being abandoned, but we were. And now we had to figure out a way to get back about 2.5 hour drive to the base. That was not fun to have to go through in a foreign country, middle of the night. Yeah, walking back to the American border, finding a way to basically get on buses and trains to make it back to my apartment complex outside the base. So we got telling you that story because we got a similar thing that happened. Our president did almost basically the same thing, but it's more dangerous than that night of fun that I went through. So we'll come back to that.
Standing for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Built upon the shoulders of the Constitution, rule of law, and the animating principle that we are all created equal. I need to hear a hallelujah, though I'm not considered a believer by some. I still believe in the warmth of heaven come. I need the rapture I feel when my feet touch the green, green grass of home. Then I know I have reached the valley of kingdom come.
So 2 planes leave Turkey. One is the real Air Force One, and one is a decoy. And the president of the United States of America climbs into a catering truck to switch between them in secret without telling his own Secretary of State. Tonight, we're talking about who got told who didn't, and what that tells you about how this man actually thinks about the people around him. Yo, welcome to the Hillbilly Think Tank with Spencer Keck. I am the educated hillbilly. And no, that's not an oxymoron. Don't call me a moron. There have been educated, erudite, and emancipated hillbillies in Kentucky ever since my kith and kin came through the Cumberland Gap with Daniel Boone and the Long Hunters and their quest to find life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness right here in Kentucky. This is where they established it through grit and determination. We've got to make sure that our kids have that grit and they're able to carry on with this life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Y'all, I am running for magistrate in District 3 in Hardin County. I am also a combat veteran, hospital corpsman, retired, and currently I'm a public school teacher. Now, y'all, tonight it isn't about policy. It's about character and who a man protects when he thinks nobody is watching. So this segment, the catering truck switcheroo. Here's what's been reported. Leaving the NATO summit on August 10th, Trump boarded Air Force One on camera, like always. Minutes later, he slipped off that plane and switched using a catering truck onto a smaller C-32A, according to the Washington Post reporting on the operation. Who made the switch with him? Well, Dan Scavino, his deputy chief of staff, Natalie Harp, his executive assistant, and the aide known around the West Wing as the human printer, because she's constantly at his elbow with printouts. Walt Nada, the Oval Office operations director and a Navy veteran who was indicted alongside Trump in the classified documents case. A handful of lower profile staff, and Defense Secretary Pete Kegsbreth was also moved on to that smaller jet, positioned by most accounts to look like the senior official on board, so nobody watching from outside would know the president wasn't there. That's the inner circle, the people who got pulled off the target. Segment 2, who got left as bait? Now here's who stayed on the decoy. The plane, everybody assumed that the president was still riding. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, fourth in line to the presidency. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller. We have been sad if he went. Communications Director Stephen Chung, Deputy National Security Advisor Michael Needham, Staff Secretary William Scharf, recently made White House counsel, and the entire traveling press pool, reporters who were told to lower their window shades before takeoff. Several of them found that odd. None of them questioned it. None of them knew why. Some of the White House staff on that plane didn't know either. According to reporting coming from the Aviationist, the deception wasn't just aimed at the press, it extended to people working for the man himself. When reporters finally asked Trump why the windows had to stay shut, he said it was because they were probably on a dangerous flight. And he told them he's number one on Iran's target list. Sit with that for a second. If the threat was real enough to justify a secret catering truck switch and a decoy jet, it was real enough that Trump let his own Secretary of State, his Treasury Secretary, and the press corps sit on the plane he believed was the actual target. Nobody told them to duck. They were just weren't told anything at all. Segment 3, the metaphor. I want to be careful here because I'm not a security expert and there may have been protocols above my pay grade. But strip away the acronyms and look at the shape of it. When the threat got real, the people closest to him professionally, Rubio, Besant, his own staff secretary, were treated as cover, human camouflage. And the people who got pulled out to safety were the ones closest to him personally. The ex-caddy, the assistant who hands him his papers, the valet. That's not a security decision. That is a loyalty test administered under fire, and only one group passed. I've spent a career believing that you don't leave people in the blast radius without telling them there is a blast radius. That's not a Republican value or a Democrat value. That's the code I carried a med bag by for 24 years. What happened on that tarmac in Turkey is a small, specific, verifiable example of a much bigger pattern. When the pressure's on, who gets protected and who gets used as the decoy unwittingly? The line, the steel man, fair is fair. So let's hear the other side, because they say there's a real case here. Presidential security protocols involving decoy aircraft aren't new. They go back decades, and keeping the traveling press and even some staff in the dark about exact movement is a documented defensible practice when a credible threat exists. The Secret Service's job isn't to be transparent, it's to keep the president alive. And compartmentalizing who knows what is standard tradecraft, not a character flaw. And there's a second wrinkle worth taking seriously. Turkish officials, according to Middle East Eye, are skeptical the threat was even real, with one source suggesting it may have been fabricated, possibly by Israeli intelligence, to complicate Trump's Iran negotiations and his relationship with Erdogan over things like the F-35 sale. If that's true, the whole story might say less about Trump's character and more about the murky, deniable world of intelligence warfare between so-called allies. Both of those are legitimate points. I'm not going to pretend they're not. Back home in Hardin County, here's why I keep coming back to it anyway. I've deployed. I've been the guy responsible for people in a threat environment. And the first rule that you learn, the rule that gets you drilled into you before you ever set foot outside the wire, it's you brief your people. You don't let them walk into a threat zone blind so you can quietly step out of that threat zone yourself. Whether or not the Turkish theory is right, whether or not this was standard protocol, the optics tell a story that Hardin County folks understand instinctively. A leader's actual instinct under pressure was to protect the inner circle and let everyone else find out later. That's not a partisan critique. That's the same standard that I would apply to fiscal court magistrate who found out about a bridge closure and only warned his own street. So, my final take. Y'all, that's tonight's story. One plane, one catering truck, and a very clear picture of who this president considers essential and who he considers expendable when those stakes get real. All right, y'all. See if I can look at these comments on my tiny phone here. See 4 comments. All right, let's see. We got the naturalist engineer here tonight. We've got welcome the naturalist engineer. So the naturalist engineer says it is. All right. What else we got here? Naturalist engineer says It was messed up what he did. Yeah, totally agree. I mean, if you don't consider that messed up, then tell me what is that, whatever would be messed up. I think that's completely messed up. And that to me is not leadership. Not at all. Hey, Tom, welcome. We got Tom Armstrong on here. Tom says, the proliferation of memes and political cartoons over this event has been a laugh riot, except that's not funny at all. Yeah, I have to agree. All right, the naturalist engineer says, of course, seems like a Nettie movie. Yeah, I have to agree. Man, can we believe that this is the reality that we're in? Y'all, again, like I said, when my Navy roommate, my apartment roommate did that, yeah, I didn't talk to him again till I moved out of that place and went to another duty station. He showed me who he was, and I could give a rat's ass about him after that. I don't care how many drinks you've had. You don't strand your buddy and his brother that's visiting from out of state and his other military buddy, my other military buddy that was visiting from out of state. You don't strand your roommate and his friend and family in a foreign country overseas because you got drunk and decided to do a drunk driving trip back home without the people you came with. I mean, that's what I went through. And, you know, I've been through some other hairy situations, but this just reminds me completely of that. A self-centered president with no excuse of even being drunk, only taking care of his inner circle, not letting the people that he leads know, hey, we've got to put you in harm's way for the good of the nation. So, well, yeah. Anybody else have any other comments about that? I mean, do you think that that is leadership? What do we think that that shows us about character? Again, doesn't matter what party you belong to. That still says something about character. And that's not what if I ever had a leader in the Navy, Marine Corps teams that I worked with, or the joint service operation teams I worked with, if they had ever done that to me or my unit, yeah, I would have never trusted them again, and I would try my best to get out of that unit. Yeah, Tom says it was a Blue Falcon move. Yeah, great military terminology there too, Tom. That Blue Falcon, man, that's what my the Blue Falcon move is what happened to me in Mexico that night, and this is what this president did. A complete Blue Falcon move. Y'all, it's been great talking to you. I think that I've got enough charge here in my vehicle now to make it all the way back from Lexington back to Hardin County, to get up at 5, go teach classes all day, and then drive back over here again tomorrow. Do it all again for the next 2 days till my family member is out of the hospital. Y'all, let's remember, in Kentucky, united we stand, divided we fall. That's not what we saw in this here with the planes, this whole scenario. But we know in Kentucky that united we stand, divided we fall. That's not just words on our flag. That is the glue that holds us together. When we say, yes, I recognize that I see my neighbor as being part of me and my family, right? If we love our neighbors as ourselves and we say, yes, I am my brother's keeper and I'm my sister's keeper, then we cannot be divided and we will not fall. Y'all, remember everyone deployed overseas tonight. If you haven't heard, it's getting so bad on the aircraft carrier over there in that Gulf region that sailors have been trying to jump overboard. They've been so long without a port visit, so many months after months after months. The food is getting to be so bad that it's extremely demoralizing. When you go that long without pressure relief It gets to be dangerous, flying constant missions, extremely dangerous. So please, let's remember everyone deployed overseas tonight. They're in harm's way in the name of us. And bless your corazon. Have a great evening, great rest of the night. Where this is Friday Eve, almost. Shoot, I'm losing track of what it is. Oh, it's not even Friday Eve. It's hump day. It's Wednesday. That's how tough this week has been. All right. Check out.